Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at these scenes. They all have two things in common. The first thing is that these scenes show villains, some of the greatest villains in cinema. The second thing in common, you may have noticed, is that they all drink milk. And that's not the image you'd normally associate with a villain. But even so, the fact that villains drink milk makes them even scarier. And in order to unravel this mystery, I studied in depth to try to understand through these scripts what role food plays in a scene, whether in a book or a movie. However, before I could answer this intriguing question, another question just as bizarre arose, a question that has moved the internet, which is, why does Brad Pitt eat so much in his movies? And when we manage to answer that question, the relationship between villains and milk will finally become clear, because it has to do with the writing technique mastered by a few writers. Of the 48 films Brad Pitt has made, he appears eating in 23. So far you might be thinking, so what? People eat, even if it's in movies and books. Nothing important. Unless that person is Brad Pitt, because he's a mathematician. The more calories Brad Pitt consumes in a movie, the more money that movie makes. To give you an idea, on average, if Brad Pitt doesn't eat, his movie makes a maximum of $68 million at the box office. If he eats up to 200 calories in a movie, that figure rises to 110 million. And if it's garbage day and he eats more than 200 calories in a movie, the figure jumps to $143 million on average.
Mas por quê? O que tem de tão importante em Brad Pitt comer? Bem, muita gente já tem avaliado isso e várias propostas já foram dadas. A primeira possibilidade está relacionada ao fato de Brad Pitt ser um homem bonito. E talvez as mulheres gostem de vê-lo comer. Ok.
And maybe women like to see him eating. Okay, Brad Pitt is a handsome man, but I'm going to rule out that possibility. No one can convince me that there are that many women who would pay to go to the movies just to watch Brad Pitt eat. At least I hope so. The second possibility is related to your acting. You may not know it, but actors in movies don't really eat. Imagine redoing the same scene 30 times and having to eat the same food dozens of times. This scene from Forrest Gump, for example, was filmed in a day and a half, repeated several times.
My mom always said, life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
No, Tom Hanks didn't eat those chocolates. To avoid health problems, actors chew them and then spit them into a bucket. It may sound disgusting, but your favorite actor has a bucket of spit. There are some actors who break this rule and eat for real, but it never works out. Like in the scene from In Search of Gold, where Charlie Chaplin eats a shoe on Thanksgiving Day. The shoe was made from licorice by a British company, and the shoot took 3 days and 63 takes. Chaplin was hospitalized with insulin shock and had to have his stomach pumped. So yes, most actors prefer to spit, and Brad Pitt is no exception. But when Brad Pitt eats, it looks real. He eats with his hands in many of his movies, with his mouth open, taking generous bites and making us believe it's real. But even so, you've never stopped to watch a movie simply because Brad Pitt can eat a sandwich like nobody's business. Which brings me to the real reason behind Brad Pitt and food. The script. One of the biggest challenges for any fiction writer, whether in literature or film, is to create characters who seem real in situations that sound real. And there are various tricks for doing this. One that I really like is putting something in the character's hand. Think about it. We're rarely without something to do. Put a guy on the corner waiting for his girlfriend. He's not going to keep his arm down waiting for half an hour looking from one side to the other. That would be pretty weird. Now if you put something in his hand, if you put anything, a cell phone, a book, an itch, anything, it will add a touch more realism. Now if you want to add a layer of depth and make this character more complex, give him food. And then, suddenly he comes to life. One of my favorite series, which was cancelled in its second season, is Life, starring the incredible Damon Lewis. The actor plays Charlie Cruz, a detective who is sentenced to life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But after 12 years in prison, he manages to prove his innocence and return to work. In almost every scene you would see Detective Cruz eating some fruit. It was so obvious that his colleague had to ask.
Alright, I have to know. What's the deal with the fruit?
Do you know what to eat, President?
Crap?
Crab. No fresh fruit. Ever. I missed it.
I don't think it'd be fruit that I'd be missing.
Yeah, it would.
So eating in this case is not just a scene creation trick, but a tool for deepening the character. Look at Rusty from 11 Men and a Secret. He's always eating snacks with his hands because his character is always on the move and doesn't have time for a proper meal. The same goes for Billy Bane in Moneyball, who is always eating fast and on the move, showing his intensity and desire to win. Louis de Pont du Lac, from the movie Interview with the Vampire, an adaptation of the Jenny Rice book, feeds on rats, which shows us the character's struggle not to feed on human blood. Joe Black, from the movie Appointment, always has very strange reactions to food because, after all, he's not human and everything is new to him. What about Fight Club? Well, in that movie Tyler doesn't eat because he's just a figment of the main character's imagination. But he is so essential and has so much meaning that you'll be surprised to see how many important scenes from your favorite films and books take place around a table. Think of The Godfather. The first scene is a wedding scene, with a huge cake and food, and much of the movie takes place around lunches and dinners. What about the Hannibal series? Yes, the series about a cannibal puts a distressing focus on the sophisticated dishes Hannibal prepares with human flesh. So the food here is a disturbing representation of his complex psychology.
Nosso relacionamento com a comida ele é tão profundo e complexo que acaba revelando muito sobre a nossa personalidade e até sobre o nosso caráter. Então, quando o escritor consegue fazer uma associação coerente entre comida e personagem, no nível inconsciente, raramente no nível consciente, a gente percebe que essa cena soa real, soa natural. Isso não precisa ser feito apenas através de semelhança, mas também através de contraste, porque gera uma sensação de intriga e de mistério.
Food can be used to awaken in us a deeper understanding of the characters. Ever since Adam and Eve, food has symbolism that can generate different associations, either through similarity or contrast, as is the case with milk. Think about what milk represents. Milk is a human being's first meal. It is associated with maternal care, with the mother's sacrifice, and any mother who has ever breastfed knows that. And then, during our childhood, milk is always present at breakfast. So its symbol is innocence and purity. No other food better represents this concept. And that's why, when a villain drinks milk, we feel uncomfortable. There is something extremely evil behind it, something disturbing, that makes us repudiate this image. Captain Homeland's addiction to milk is an aberration, even more so knowing that it really is mother's milk. It's disturbing to see Colonel Hans Landa drinking milk in the harrowing scene from Inglourious Bastard. The same is true of Anton Chigurh, where the weak have no place, and Alex from The Clockwork Orange and many others. Milk not only represents childhood and purity, but also our maternal relationship. We can see this relationship explicitly in Captain Homeland. It's normal for a baby to drink breast milk, but for an adult to do so shows that this person has very complex Freudian problems and an unhealthy maternal relationship. But even the others who apparently drink cow's milk seem to have some kind of maternal problem too. Otherwise, they would hardly have become the psychopaths they are. That's the power of symbolism. And even if you can't grasp all these nuances on a conscious level, you can be sure that unconsciously you already knew about them. And that's why these scenes bothered you so much. The act of eating and drinking in the hands of a skilled writer becomes a powerful tool for communicating what doesn't need to be said, but can only be shown. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like and check out this video from our sponsors that you'll like. A big hug and arrivederci.
If you suffer or are afraid of ever developing cancer, I know you keep wondering, what will become of me? Will I be alive tomorrow? Will one day, will the pharmaceutical industry be able to create a solution to my problem? One thing I assure you, this industry is not worried at all about you. Think with me, why do you think technology involves, the sciences involved, medicine itself involves? And we still don't have a solution to this old problem, fortunately along with my team. We have gathered more than 100 definitive forms to beat cancer, some of them 10,000 times more effective than the conventional way. Do you want access to this list? Then click on the link and come find out. The link will be fixed in the comment.